All right, let's talk about George Washington. You see his face everywhere, right? On our money, our capital city, these giant monuments. He's so foundational to the United States that he almost doesn't feel real, more like a statue than a person. But today, we're going to peel back the layers of that myth. We're going to use the historical record to get to know the leader, the revolutionary, and the deeply contradictory man at the very heart of it all.
Here's a fun fact you might not know. George Washington is the only U.S. president who never actually lived in the White House, but his fingerprints are all over it, from its design to the very power of the office it represents. He laid the cornerstones, both literally and figuratively. So who was this guy really? Who was the man behind the legend?
To really understand him, we've got to go back, way before he was General Washington or Mr. President. See, first he was a political thinker. He was one of the people forging the big ideas that would light the fuse of revolution. This wasn't just about battles and strategy. It was about defining what they were even fighting for in the first place.
Okay, picture this. It's 1774. That's 2 full years before the Declaration of Independence. Tensions with Britain are through the roof. And Washington, he's not just sitting on the sidelines. He's right in the thick of it, chairing a meeting to write down exactly what their problems were with the king. This document, the Fairfax Resolves, this is one of the first times they put the revolution down on paper.
And bam! Right there. That's the heart of it. This one line says it all. It's such a simple but powerful idea. You can't take our money if we don't have a voice in your government. This wasn't just complaining about taxes. This was a direct challenge to the king's authority, a shot across the bow. And what's crazy is how much they'd already figured out. Look at this list. They're talking about a unified Congress, boycotting British goods. It's the whole playbook. But check out that last point. Seriously, they're calling for an end to the international slave trade, calling it wicked, cruel, and unnatural. And Washington himself is overseeing this. Remember that. Tuck that thought away, because man, does it get complicated later.
So, you've got these incredible ideas on paper. Great, but how do you actually do it? How do you take those ideals and build a real, stable country from scratch, especially after a brutal war? Well, that's the next massive hurdle, and it falls right on Washington's shoulders.
So now he's president, and it's not like he had a job description to follow. The presidency didn't really exist yet. He was inventing it, day by day. Every single move he made, every decision, it was setting the rules for everyone who would come after him. This is where the rubber really meets the road.
And just look at what they got done in his first term. The pace is absolutely wild. In just a couple of years, they're building the entire federal court system, sorting out the national economy, literally picking a spot on a map for the capital, and just ratifying the Bill of Rights. This is like building a country on fast forward.
But honestly, some of his biggest contributions weren't even laws. They were the traditions he started. The Constitution doesn't say anything about a cabinet of advisors. That was a Washington invention. He established that the president leads on foreign policy. And then the big one, the one that still blows my mind. After 2 terms, he just walked away. In a world full of kings who ruled for life, he willingly gave up power. That single act might be his most important legacy.
Okay, so we've talked about the legend. Now we have to talk about the really difficult part, the paradox at the center of his life. The man who fought for freedom was also a man who owned other human beings, and there's just no way around it.
And this is the question, isn't it? The one that hangs over everything. How can both of those things be true in the same person? The hero of liberty and the slave owner. History doesn't give us an easy answer, and we can't ignore what it tells us. Let's just lay out the facts. This wasn't some small part of his life, it was his life. He inherited his first enslaved people when he was just a kid, only 11 years old, and he owned people for 56 years. Everything he had, his home at Mount Vernon, his money, his status, it was all built on the forced labor of others. And becoming president didn't change that, not at all. The presidential household was run by enslaved people. He signed the Fugitive Slave Act into law, a law that basically empowered slave catchers all over the country. And this next part is, wow. In Pennsylvania, a state law could free enslaved people if they lived there for 6 months. So you know what he did? He would send them back to Virginia just before the 6 months were up to restart the clock. He used a legal loophole to keep people in bondage. And nothing shows this contradiction more clearly than this. On one side, you have his own words from back in 1774, calling the slave trade wicked. And on the other, his actions as president. When an enslaved woman named Ona Judge escaped to freedom from the presidential household,
He didn't just let her go. He used the power of his office to hunt her down, relentlessly.
So what do we do with that? We have these two George Washingtons, right? The indispensable founder and the lifelong slave owner. How are we supposed to put those pieces together to get a clear picture of him today?
Even his final act on slavery is, well, it's complicated. In his will, he arranged for the freedom of the 123 people he directly owned, which was a massive deal. But, and it's a big but, he stipulated that their freedom would only be granted after his wife, Martha, died.
So yes, it was delayed, it was imperfect, but you also have to know this. It was unique. Of all the slave-owning founding fathers who became president, Washington was the only one who ultimately freed the people he held in bondage. It's like this final, complicated gesture against a system he was part of his whole life.
And at the same time, you just can't deny what he built. People trusted him with incredible power because he had a track record of giving it up. He created the playbook for the presidency. He cemented the idea that the military answers to civilians. I mean, you can make a very strong case that without him, the whole American experiment would have fallen apart before it even got started.
So in the end, his legacy is really the country itself, a nation founded on these beautiful, powerful ideals and on a terrible foundational sin. How does a nation move forward when its most important founder is also its most profound contradiction? That's not a question with an easy answer. It's one we're all still trying to figure out.